Time now for our friend Julie Gunlock from the Independent Women's Forum to join us for a nanny state update. Julie, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It is always good having you on the program, and especially when you are taking on the culture of alarmism and oh boy, there are lots of stuff to be alarmed about, right?
Right.
We got contaminated burgers. We got sparkling water that's going to kill us.
Yeah.
Where would you like? Would you like to start with the food or the beverage item?
Oh gosh, well,
today,
I'm pretty
Julie?
I'm hungry, so let's start with the food. But I will tell you, as I was leaving the house, I was scrolling through Twitter, and Daily Mail's headline is cereals are contaminated with bug killer. This actually came out a couple of months ago, but they're rehashing it. And, of course, they say this is so worrisome. So you can't win at breakfast. You can't win at lunch. You can't win when you go to the fast food restaurants. This headline came out a couple of weeks ago saying that this environmental group called the Environmental Working Group, which I've been following for a lot of years, they promote a lot of really bad science. They're sort of well known for this. They crank out a lot of bad stuff. And their latest thing was to ask fast food restaurants what their policies were on antibiotic-free meat. And so they didn't actually test the meat. They didn't test the fast food to check for antibiotics in the meat. And I'll tell you why they didn't do that. They checked with the restaurants. And some restaurants say, oh, we only source from, organic or antibiotic-free. These animals never, ever get antibiotics. And only a few of those have those very strict regulations. So they gave them an A+. Those restaurants got an A+. And again, those were the restaurants that have adopted the most strict guidelines on meat. And again, some organic and some farmers say, never, my animal will never get an antibiotic. Now, this is the thing that consumers need to understand. Every single meat product in the grocery store and sold at fast food restaurants is antibiotic free. That's the law. You can't give an animal antibiotics and then slaughter it the next day. The FDA requires both cattlemen who raise beef and chicken farmers and dairy farmers to wait a certain amount of time. It's the same with humans. When we take an antibiotic, the doctor says take it every day for 10 days, and then we all take it for like 5. But no, sorry. But we take it for 10. We take it for the 10 days, and then it takes a while for that medicine to get out of your system. It's the same thing with animals. They have to, for instance, dairy cows, and I link to a wonderful blog from a woman named she goes by Dairy Carrie Mess. She's a dairy farmer, and she writes about this. And she says, if a cow gets a metastasis, which is an infection in a milk duct, they're taken off the line. They're given a full set of antibiotics, and then they have to wait a couple weeks to make sure that antibiotic is out of the cow's system. They test the milk. They actually take a little milk. They test it. Actually, when a tanker comes to fill her entire farm's milk and transport it, they actually test that milk. That's why some milk, if it has antibiotic residue in it, can be dumped. And they do the same with meat. The FDA regulates this and ensures that all meat that you get in the grocery store. So when you see antibiotic free in the grocery store, that's marketing. That's totally marketing, because all meat and milk and cheese has to be antibiotic free. So again, the EWG is doing this. They're putting out this report that says, these restaurants have use meat with antibiotics in it. That's not true. Again, they didn't test the meat. They just asked for the policies. And again, some of these restaurants, they get really into this, we only use, cage-free, and we only use organic food and produce. And some have adopted very strict regulations on antibiotics given to farm animals. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going on, but I will tell you, I personally think that the antibiotic-free policy can be cruel. When we have a living thing here, and when it gets sick, just like a human, antibiotics can cure farm animals of painful diseases. And so I don't quite understand the policy of not giving animals antibiotics. I know it's a complicated issue, and I'm simplifying it here, and I'm happy to go on about it, but I don't agree, actually, with restaurants adopting those strict rules. I think it can end up being cruel to animals.
Listen, I'm with you because I think here's the thing. I think anytime one of these issues tries to get just dumbed down to the point of unless you're doing what I demand that you do,
Right.
then you're evil.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't buy that, you know. And you talk about this environmental working group and the story about the cereals. So I went looking and I found this is at Fox Business, but this is indicative of most of the media coverage here. And the headline was Roundup ingredient found in Cheerios, Quaker Oats, and other
Right.
cereals.
Right.
And again, this is from the environmental working group, the same group. Now,
Right.
now the unsafe levels, though, are the levels that the environmental working group has determined
Right.
to be unsafe. Right. The very last paragraph of the story, quote, while those products exceeded the EWG's threshold, they still fall within the EPA's regulations. In a statement to Fox Business regarding the report, a General Mills spokesperson says, quote, our products are safe and without question, they meet regulatory safety levels.
And this is what's so terrible. Cereal is incredibly affordable and it is incredibly healthy. Oatmeal, for instance, EWG went after oatmeal, Quaker Oats. That is one of the healthiest things you can eat in the morning. And you think of people that are really struggling financially, and then they're going to say, oops, nope, can't eat oatmeal. No, can't eat, a fast food burger, which is, again, a cheap and nutritious way. I mean, people disagree with that, but there was this great article once breaking down nutritionally what a cheeseburger is for like $1. And frankly, if you're really struggling, $1 cheeseburger is going to get you through the day. And so you always have these attacks and they harm the poorest people the most. And I just want to be clear about this Roundup in breakfast cereals. Listen, Roundup, the chemical, the active ingredient in Roundup, okay, is called glyphosate. It has been the subject of more fear-mongering, unwarranted. It is non-carcinogenic. It is the safest pesticide that is used currently in modern ag. It is a wonderful product. Farmers love it. It's been banned in many European countries, and European farmers are really, really struggling. And glyphosate is used on American crops, and then they are, and when you see people spraying, it is like a Coke can of glyphosate for a football field of crops. It's mostly water that they are spraying on these fields. That field is then harvested, dried out, okay, and then they use the wheat and the corn and the oats and different grains in these cereals. There are trace levels of glyphosate in these cereals. We're talking parts per billion, 0.0000, follow the zeros, parts per billion. You are not getting a lethal amount. I'll give you one other perfect example of this. For my child, and when you talk about the EPA levels of harm, if my child is eating strawberries that have been sprayed with a pesticide, okay, for my child to get a lethal dose of pesticide residue, they would have to eat 1,500 strawberries, okay? That's how small, that is how trace we're talking about the levels of pesticides in these crops. And for the EWG to create this false, like, at 0.00, 15 zeros parts per billion, you're actually going to get harmed. That is their measurement, and it is a lie. It is not based on science. And again, they really scare moms. They often scare people who are on a tight budget, who are looking for those things that are affordable, like conventional produce or cereals or things like grits. And so it's really unfortunate. And again, this is not, when you see EWG, when you see Environmental Working Group dismiss anything they say, they make a lot of money on this stuff, and they are known purveyors of junk science.
All right, Julie Gunlock again from the Independent Women's Forum. And here is a story, Julie, from today. This may have been what you actually saw as you were running out the door. This is from CNN. Arman Azad. Here's the headline. Dozens more breakfast foods test positive for trace amounts of weed killer, report says. Now, again, you get in the headline, trace amounts, right?
Yeah.
But that's really easy to overlook. And in the course of the story, this is paragraph 4, none of the foods violated EPA limits on the herbicide, but the EWG uses a far more conservative health benchmark.
Right.
And good for CNN for actually noting this. They note
700th
California's proposed
paragraph.
Well, hang on, time out. This is in paragraph 4. They note California's proposed a glyphosate limit, which would be the most restrictive in the country, still allows for levels that are over 100 times higher than the EWG's threshold. So California, which has declared everything to be a cancer-causing agent, would still allow more than 100 times more glyphosate than this EWG. So you listen, you're right. I'll give CNN partial credit for noting that. But the bigger notation would have been, hey, there's this group that's peddling junk science, and we're not going to report on it for you.
There's that. Or how about the headline, environmental group, again, is promoting bad science, right? Or every single scientist disagrees with this report. But I think you're right. The more responsible thing to do is to not report on this nonsense. EWG makes a ton of money on these types of reports. Every year they put out the Dirty Dozen, which is the dozen vegetables and fruits that have the most pesticide residue. Again, they put strawberries at the top of the list. They put things like bananas way down on the list because you have to peel them, but they're suggesting that vegetables that you don't have to peel are more dangerous. And again, my child's stomach would explode before he would get a toxic dose of that pesticide. So again, parents need to understand this stuff is not true. You're doing fine. Eat more fruits and vegetables, period. Don't worry if it's organic. Don't worry if it's this or that. Eat more healthy and lean proteins. If you see the no antibiotics label, that is a lie. That is a marketing gimmick. That is an attempt to make more money. If you see non-GMO, another label that is meaningless, and it is in no way indicative of the health of that food. So yes, we had a banner week this week, a banner month, frankly, in alarmist headlines. It's really too bad. I think there's a lot. And lastly, I'll just say the LaCroix story. There is a lawsuit against LaCroix. And of course, a lot of these groups are like cheering on this lawsuit. And so it's so funny because there was that Penn and Teller video years ago where they went to this environmental event and they got people to sign what's it called? I'm blanking on the word, but basically got to sign against this chemical, which was H2O. Okay, and so I always laugh like, oh no, that's so funny. That's a parody. We're actually coming full circle now, where people are actually demonizing water. LaCroix is water. There's nothing safer or healthier than water, and so we've actually gotten to the point where we are filing lawsuits saying water is actually unhealthy. It's really crazy time.
Indeed it is. Julie Gunlock, I appreciate you joining us on the program today. Thank you so much, and we'll do this again very soon.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to go home, and no kidding, I'm actually going to eat sliders for dinner. So there you go.